Welcome to the Stair Builders and Manufacturers Association Legends podcast series.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Pitcher with CP Adhesives here for another round of Stair Legends. And I've got David Ryder and Dave Silvia with me. And David and I are going to talk to Dave about his past and his experiences in the stair industry and kind of figure out what he's up to. So, David, take it away.
Yeah, Dave, it's great to have you here. I just kind of typically start off asking the question, how long have you been in the stair business?
Well, since about 1988, I started with Dave Cooper. Dave hired me as an installer. We were purchased on April 1st in 1991. We actually became employees of North Atlantic Corp. That was my first day. So this April will be 35 years.
Wow, that's great.
It looks like North Atlantic Corp is doing much more than stairs. They're doing windows, doors, everything.
Yeah, North Atlantic Corp. We actually have several locations. North Atlantic Corp does all interior millwork specialized, but we do commercial. There's different divisions. So we're over $100 million company. We also own a company in Tennessee called Central Millwork. There's two locations there. We just recently purchased AC Door out in Colorado to complement the other stuff that goes on here. And of course, part of the architectural products division, which I used to be leading, was Captiva doors and custom moldings besides Cooper Stairworks. Those are all brands by us.
Wow. Wow. So what got you interested in stairs?
I needed a job.
Right.
I came from a very modest background. And I never really, I seen that in the paper for an installer. And, I graduated from a trade school in 1973. And if anybody's as old as me, they'll know that 73 was a serious recession. And I didn't end up going into that. So I got caught up in retail for a little bit, went to for about 13 years, I guess, there. And then I decided I wanted to do something different in the trade. And I went to work in all places, a roof truss company, which sucked. It was terrible hard work, very physical. It wasn't that automated. The gentleman who owned it, really nice guy, but man, did I pick something to break into, I can tell you that. And then I seen an ad in the paper for a stair installer, which I answered and had no business answering, but it intrigued me because I thought it would be pretty cool if I could worm my way into it. So David promptly said I didn't have enough experience, and I thought I was a nice guy, and he'd come back later. He said I need somebody to do stuff right now, and I kept telling him that I could. That he needs to give me the opportunity. And it was after 5 o'clock. It was just he and I in his office down on Manchester Street in Fall River way back when. And I kept pointing to September 19th and saying, I can start on that day. I was doing a little side job and I can start on that day. And he kept saying very nicely and standing up saying, you're a real good guy, but I need somebody who can contribute right now. And I said, I think I can. So I'll start on September 19th. And, at this point, I think he started to get a little uncomfortable and like, who do I have here? This guy a nut. But what I did tell him, this is the God's honest truth. I said, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll work 2 weeks for free. And after 2 weeks, if I don't show any promise, I'll leave and you don't have to pay me. So David responded by saying, no one works for free. I'll see you on the 19th.
Wow.
That's
So you
exactly
sold them
how
on yes.
that's exactly how it went. And the
That's
rest, they
amazing.
say, is history. I started as an installer. First built one of the first pre-assembled stairs that Cooper had built, um, out of that shop, and I ran a separate shop, only 4 employees that did pre-assembled stairs, and that's where we began pre-fit rail system, drilling the rake rails, notching the newels, drilling the treads, putting hardware on. And then the other shop that he had was he also did some cabinets there and some other uh, curved stairs and stuff. So we eventually joined it all together, but I went up there and that was my start.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. I just kind of curious, is that, is he sort of the most influential person, sort of in a positive way for you coming into the industry, or was there other people that, kind of stand out to you?
Oh, no, it's so crazy. I remember it like it was yesterday that when I thought it was cool. I thought, I said, here's what I was thinking, to be honest, Dave. I said, let's see, a stair guy, he'll always work inside, he'll always be nice. Um, I'll always probably be warm. And it sounds pretty cool to me. And I went home and I told my wife, I said, hey, listen, I just got hired as a stair builder. And she was like looking at me. Uh, I said, what do you know about that? I said, nothing really. I said, but uh, if I apply myself, I'll never be out of work again. I will never be out of work again. And
Mhm.
and I never have been. I haven't missed a day in all that time. I'd like to think I tried my best during the time and applied myself and took whatever opportunities I had, did the best of them.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So along the way, what would you say was the most challenging aspect of your career?
It's boy, there was, you know, so much challenging. But the one that really stands out is recent because I just recently switched to part-time, 3 days a week. I cut back to 3 days a week and gave up the head chair. So I think it was me worrying about the future of the shop and everybody that worked in it. There's like 40 people in the shop, another 15 in the office. And I was very concerned about that because I spent my entire adult life building it. And one thing I never forgot, that Dave Cooper's name is on there, not mine. And I wanted to keep that going. I wanted that to be something, and the ownership here kept that name, and it was really important that Dave and I are also really good friends, obviously, and it was important for me to prepare, and that was probably um, most recently the hardest part. And I got a gentleman by the name of Paul Correa who's taken my seat. He went to the last SMA meeting. He's worked for me over 25 years, and I had been grooming him. I get serious probably the last 5 years, and I'm confident that he's going to do a good job. They
Great.
split up the duties a little bit.
Yeah,
I guess no sane person uh, could do all the different crazy things I was involved in between purchasing machinery and new products and blah 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 blah. Because we do both wholesale and retail. So one of our divisions is Cleary Millwork, and so I developed these stair dealers around New England and New York. Went during the recession, I might add, because I got sick of laying off people.
yeah.
So I had to get work from somewhere. So I went out there and called them Cooper dealers. So we get a sizable amount. There's always room to grow out there, but it's a little hard to control. But all in all, it's worked out pretty well.
That sounds great. With all your experience, is there a certain achievement that you're particularly proud of?
Um, let's see. Yeah, there's a couple of them. So Cooper Stairworks is part of NAC. So NAC um, owns the brand names I said, Cooper, Captiva Door, and Custom Moldings. So in 1991, when we came over, we had about, I don't know, $500,000 worth of work. There were 6 of us, and that kept us busy. Last year, that division did close to $20 million.
Wow.
So it was a little bit like 17% of sales. So that made me very happy that that kind of growth, and a lot of sweat and tears through the whole thing. And you know, the company, though, the owner of the company, Peter Humphrey, um, who now his 2 sons are involved in it and they're overseeing it. And Peter's kind of like me, taking a step back. Um, he he empowered me to do a good job. He trusted me. He empowered me to do it. He was willing to invest in machinery and materials, and I just had I just had to come through. So you can imagine when you buy your first $400,000 CNC machine, and it's, you know, it's a family owned business, that it's makes you a little nervous.
Yeah, that's a lot of trust.
After the third one, it's a piece of cake.
I'd definitely be nervous with that.
I was very nervous, and you know, but some of the purchases, you know, I didn't just go out and, you know, people come to the shop and they go, "Holy crap! Oh my God, you have so much machines! Oh my, yeah!" You know, I said I never just bought machines. I always I not always tried. It was to break up an obstacle to take me to the next level.
Mm.
When we could no longer keep up with laminating treads with bar clamps, I bought an RF gluing machine. When we could no longer, you know, do the planer, I bought a 2-sided planer. We could no longer the rough mill, I bought a gang grip. We so there was other things, and you know, the shop, and because I was also overseeing the Costa Captiva door shop, I was guilty of being a hog, because as an installer, I was out there installing a stair, and gee, what's right behind you? In most cases, a beautiful wood door. So I wanted that too. So, you know, we hired a couple of people that were in the business, bought a small door business, and it became serious, and we branded it. And that, I'm happy to say, is doing very well. It probably was $4 or $5 million of that last year. So that's pretty cool.
Nice. So going back to when you got started, do you have advice for somebody who's trying to get into the stair industry today? What words of wisdom would you have?
So I'd like to even go back a little bit more about how I was influenced. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it all blends in. So Dave Cooper, of course, kickstarted my career, and without that chance, I don't think I'd be in stairs right now. To be perfectly honest with you, I probably would have just moved on. Who knows? You know.
Yeah.
But like I hired people, I consider myself to be mechanical.
Mm.
So I hire people if they're got a nice personality and I see that they're mechanical. If mechanical people can do a lot of things, I know as a young man, I could do a lot of things. I used to work on cars. I used to, you know, do all kind of stuff. And most of it was because I didn't have any money, but, you know, out of necessity. But mechanical people can do a lot of things. You know, they can catch up. It's guaranteed. And I remember one gentleman walking in one day here looking for a job, and he was all covered with grass clippings. And he was probably about 20 years old. And I said, "How you doing?" He said, "Good." I said, "Tough day?" He goes, "Yeah, oh my God, so tough." I started talking to him more, and I found out he did work as a mechanic, and he was cutting grass, and he did painting and did all this stuff. So I said, "You know what? Why don't you start here, and we'll teach you something, and come work for me here." And he did for about 3 years. Then he joined the service, which was very nice, service country, and he moved on. But he was a really good employee. His name was Darwin, and he was a really good employee. So especially now, the way the labor market is, there's no one walking in off the street saying, "Hey, I'm a stair builder." Yeah, there never was. You could put an ad in the paper and say, you know, a stair builder. You know, no one answers. No one comes to it. It's either that, or sometimes you might get somebody from another shop that you probably didn't want. They have uh, bad. They made a bad influence, maybe even on the shop. There was a reason why they weren't working.
Yeah.
So I'd rather homegrown, and that's how it started off. And as I said, I remember when I got hired, I told my wife that, and uh, you know, it was great. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Lance Engel. Lance Engel was a professional stair builder. He came from, oddly enough, Cooper Stairs in Chicago. When Dave Cooper hired Lance, Lance had moved back, well, into the area to get married. He was divorced, and that's how Dave got him. And Lance applied at Cooper Stair Works. And he just thought it was pretty cool. It was the same name. Well, Lance, as it turns out, was such a good mentor. I don't know if I could have ever went through the 35 years without Lance. He worked till he was 82. I lost him about a year and a half ago.
Oh,
But man, oh man, not only to me, he was always willing to teach,
mm,
always down in the shop. And people would come by, at the end when he was working part-time and new employees, they'd ask me a question, and I'd go, "Do you realize that all you have to do is go over and ask Lance? And he's got 10 ways to do it, not one way. He has 10 ways, and he'd be so more than happy to show you. And Lance had, it was just a good human being, and I miss him so much. And Lance, a little personal story about Lance, and maybe he was so regimented, and it was probably because he was on the USS Nautilus. He went under the North Pole, not in the original, but and I was lucky enough 4 months before Lance passed to go with Lance to see the Nautilus in Groton, Connecticut, and he gave me a personal tour. So
oh,
Wow.
wow.
yeah, I know. That moment, those pictures, that's like tops for me. That's my
Yeah.
greatest experience. But Peter Humphrey, the owner, he saw something in the five people that came over, the original five, and Peter, we were selling stairs to him at very small, a couple of stairs a year, actually. But David Cooper knew him from the area, and he he believed in the product. He believed it would be a nice fit into the interior millwork. Um, and I was lucky enough to be able to become part of it. The company. It's been a good company.
Yeah. It sounds like, being mechanical, obviously it's interesting. So many of the inventors in this country came off of farms. It's a little known fact, but having that mechanical aptitude just helped people and, in various ways and come up with a lot of ideas and ingenuity. That's beautiful. I love that. There's if we could have our druthers, a lot of times we wish we could go back in time and talk to ourselves. If you could go back, Dave Sylvia today, go back and talk to young Dave Sylvia, uh, you know, budding in the career, what would you say to yourself? What would be your advice?
That's really a tough one, but I would say the more you can expose yourself to the trade, to SMA is a great place for young stair builders. I met the gentleman, Charlie, I think his name is T. I hope I'm not wrong. From Maine Custom Stairs, young guy, great guys, young family. Um, he came to the last SMA meeting. Um, the more they can mingle. There was and go shop tours. I have never. Went to many shop tours and visited many shops that they welcomed me because I've welcomed them. That I didn't come away with something.
Mm,
So I was experienced enough to know about certain things, and I'm not saying copying, but I'm saying it's a lot of things inspired me to do different things. And anyone that's been in the business, you can walk into any woodworking shop and come away with something, whether it be a new tool, whether it be, they don't make for the most part any real stair building tools. Are starting to now. So we always had to make them ourselves. So whether it be a rail drilling, whether it be, putting miters together, whatever it is, we always, you had to make them yourself. And we built here a small self-centering plow machine, and for the rails, and I've never seen another one like it. The guys, came to me one day with an idea. I said, "What do you need?" And it worked out great. But one of the other things that I help introduce, that you know, and that's my point of answering your question is you just have to get involved. You have to dig in. You have to dig in. And if you really like it, and it was quickly, I knew I really loved it, and it was, it was something I wanted to be in the rest of my life. But I hope develop you ever hear of a zip bolt, rail bolt? So
Yeah.
I help introduce that about 17 years ago. I met the gentleman in a tool show in Atlanta, and it was he's from Australia. It was a countertop connector, and he made other stuff for the cabin industry. And I asked him if he'd ever join rails together. Very selfishly, I might have asked him that, and he said,
Right.
"I don't know what you're talking about." So I said, "Well, when I get back, I'm going to send you samples, and this thing looks like it could work." So he came back, and he's one of my closest friends now, 17 years. His name is Milan Pilia, and his daughter works along with him. Millie, she's awesome too. But he was willing. He's seen an opportunity to expand his fastener line.
Mhm.
I was selfishly going after something to make it quicker because
Yeah.
I'm telling people, "Hey, I'm going to pre-fit your rail system, and now I'm going to give you a zip bolt. You just go with power and put it in." So, and whatever it may be. So selfishly, I had an idea, and he owns the patent, so I get to sell them. But I
Yeah.
sell them. But we go through, and just a regular rail bolt, 10 to 12,000 a year just in our shop alone, and plus we
Wow.
sell them both retail and wholesale. So uh, that was several SMA members buy them. So I really got off on that because it's something, a process that's been 200 years old, hasn't changed much.
Yeah.
Now they can put it together with power. So that I'm happy with.
That's cool.
That's
And
great.
I think um I think when other people, are thinking about this, they really have to try something. They have to, like I won't tell you the beginning part that I failed miserably with the first railboat we made, and I threw it 5,000 in the dumpster.
Oh,
But
Ouch.
but that was all part of it. And I remember going to the owner saying, you know, I it didn't work. I
yeah.
said, but he's coming from Australia to meet me to the shop, and we're going to work out the bugs. I'm very confident it's going to go, and I promise I'll make you some money. So he's that type of owner that he said, okay, they just go for it, and continue down the path you're going, and so it's pretty cool.
That's
That
great.
is cool.
And I
So,
think, well, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. You're
Yeah,
fine.
I can go on for the rest of the day. But one of the other things that people getting into the business or something, I'm a vocational school graduate. I didn't go to college. It was for the woodworking program, and I probably after 5 years of being here, I joined a couple of 2 or 3 advisory board meetings. One being from the school. Um, again, selfishly to meet the students and see what was going on in my old school and stuff. And I started a co-op program here, and it was wildly successful. I mean, so nobody's applying for jobs. We'd homegrown. I had the opportunity to homegrown. Now, not everyone stood. Some came to me and said, "Thank you, Mr. Silvia, for the opportunity, but I'm joining the service." And I always shook their hand and said, "Thanks for serving our country. You know, when you get out, come see me." You know, and someone made it, someone didn't. Someone said, I had a few say, "You know, this is really cool, but I want to build houses." I said, "Well, I did that for a little while, and I think you're better off here, but you know what? You should go out and build a house and see if you like it. But when you're freezing your butt off out there in the wintertime, you'll remember how nice and warm it is in the shop." And it gets some back that way, you know. So you don't get everyone, and not every co-op student is good, but it is certainly a way to get employees and to get them, I'll say, to help mold their career here.
Yeah.
And you know, good. I mean, I got some. There was at a time that was like 70% was co-op kids, and I'd go around. It was like crazy how good they were, and you know, I shouldn't say where the CNC program, the guy on the curb deck. That, you know, it's just fantastic.
That is
That's
that
a good source.
trade schools, vocational schools, definitely seem to be a great way for people to get ahead. Many times, you know, a lot of the things I hear now is they're coming out of these trade schools and vocational schools, and they're walking into careers because they can do something. They
Yeah.
have skill. They're mechanically minded, and the world is always going to need those people. You know, so
Yeah.
you can get all sorts of degrees in philosophy, but sometimes that doesn't necessarily always pay the bills. So,
The other thing that was cool about it is when I started them, you know, the school didn't have like an automatic feeder.
Mm,
You know, so when I went to one of the meetings, I said, "You know, I got this co-op kid here." When I showed him the automatic feeder, he had no idea. I said, "You need to buy a feeder the next round of appropriations." So I got a chance to influence some of their purchases that would benefit me also selfishly, you know.
mhm.
So, but it seems to be worked out nice. I will say that we probably had it's starting to get a little better. I'm only on two vocational school thing. Actually, I got a meeting tomorrow night. Um, the students, just because of the way things, they started screwing around with schedules and stuff, the way things were done in schools, and the the kids weren't the same kids I was getting 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, you had to take a step back. But uh, most of them are good kids. Most of them, I did find out that most of them are good kids that want to learn. The only thing I always used to worry about is putting them with a training buddy, because I never wanted any of them hurt.
Yeah.
You know, they're young, using some machines that industrial. You know, because when you talk to them, "Oh yeah, I know how to use a table saw." Yeah, but do you know how to use that table saw? And they look at it and go, "I didn't even know it was a table saw." You know, so it was so big. It was so big.
Right.
Yeah, so you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What else? You
Yeah,
got?
I talk to teacher friends these days, and they all, to a person, tell me that the kids are not the same that they were 15, 20 years ago.
Okay.
It's
Okay. So just yesterday, I had a guy start work here again. He's working the Dave Sylvia shift, they say now, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So he's retired as a vocational school student, but he worked for me. I hired him 30 years ago as an estimator, and he was working for me for 2, 3 years, and then an opportunity came to be a teacher. And his dad was teaching woodworking at Diamond Regional, and he went there to teach. So he's been there all this time. So when he you know, he retired. He's still a young guy. He took early out. He still wanted to work. He came here to go to work. He's actually down in the shop. He's pushing wood through the planer and stuff. But it's awesome to have him. I mean, he probably will only be down in the shop a short while, and we'll use him somewhere else. But it's important, I think, to try to treat people good.
Yes.
You know, don't intentionally. I don't know if I did it to every single person. For that, I'm sorry to the world and to the cosmos, but I tried to, I think.
Mm.
So, okay, along those terms, any big regrets? What's your biggest regret along the way?
Oh God. My biggest regret. Probably, some of the that I probably didn't get into it sooner. That I didn't, the way things worked out though, maybe it was good because I got a little bit of real life and out there before I got the opportunity to build stairs. But if I figure if I had those 10 years, I could have conquered the world. I could have, maybe that would be it if I could have started it sooner. But the world wasn't ready for me then. Recession.
Right. That's a good regret to have. That's a good regret
Yeah.
Yeah.
to have that you couldn't have been involved sooner. That's great. That's great. Along those lines, we mentioned some of the issues with kids coming up. I'm not sure if that plays into this question. What do you see the challenges within the next decade in the industry? You think it's staffing? You think it's demand? What kind of issues you think we're looking at in the next
Okay.
10 years?
That's the number one challenge, David. That's the number one challenge. Experience help. Even an experienced woodworker. I'm not saying stair builder, I'm not saying door builder, just an experienced wood. It's amazing that some people in the industry don't know how to read a tape measure.
Hmm.
And if it's not a digital clock, they can't tell time.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me. So I say that. So before COVID, pre-COVID, it was getting tough. After COVID, I mean, man, it just was brutal because they were getting a little bit of pay or whatever to stay home, and they didn't give a crap about the future. They was thinking about today. Some, not all, some of the younger other generation, I'll say, because so many generations mixed in, but
Right.
we invested in technology. Technology can only take you to a point. You still need someone to use the technology, and you
Yeah.
still need some. I learned a long time ago when we bought our first CNC. Oh, what are you gonna do? Where are you gonna get an operator? Oh, putting that in the paper. Putting that in the paper. So I put that in the paper, looking for a CNC operator. Sure as hell, we got one. Applied, real nice guy. Did metal work. Little things like this. Little things. Little things. 2 inches by 2 inches. Did little fancy metalwork. Well, it looks at a 16-foot string. I was like, what the hell is that? Is truthfully. And it was so important. So they put a board or a block to make a rail on the CNC and they'd run the program. And it didn't matter if that board, if he was cutting knots, showing knots, So not knowing the product and what it should look like, if we would have moved that board 4 inches, it would be a nice clear stringer. But because
Yeah.
it didn't, when the laser projected down on it, he had all the knots that were showing up. So it's those little things what the product looks like. So we hired two. I was a second shift person, and I was lucky and he became department head, the second one, because his grandfather used to do some woodworking. So he understood a lot of the woodworking, and so that was great. But going further, I remember just grabbing a stair builder and saying, you know what? How would you like to learn how to run a CNC?
Mm.
And then I sent him the program to school because it's very important that he know what it's supposed to look like when it comes
Yeah.
off the machine.
Yeah.
Because they'd run the machine. Hey, that looks great. I said, well, what about that big knot in there or a split? Or we can't use that or fitting. We can't do that. It's very important. So I learned then it was much easier to get somebody that knew what the product looked like and turn them into somebody bright, and turn them into a CNC operator. That's one of the things. Anyway, as far as experience, help, and labor, and going forward, and I think it's the same way. It's even the same way now.
Yeah. Well,
Makes
Do the same
sense.
thing again.
So, along those lines, do you think that this technology is going to improve in the stair industry? I mean, is that the big thing for the next 10 years, next generation, is increases in technology, or is there
I
something
think,
else?
I mean, there's so many good software programs now. We've got a couple of them. I think it's going to help, but you're never going to, in my estimation, you're never going to take away some of the human aspect. There's still some stuff that we do hand carved rates. There's still some stuff that some of the programming can't handle, or maybe so many people think a lot of times, well, can you do it on CNC? Can you do it on CNC? Maybe you're better off not doing it on CNC. It's quicker somewhere else. It's quicker to do something. That's a real misnomer about when you work with so many salesmen. They'll come in with this woodworking project. Can you do it on CNC? Yeah, no, I'll cut it on a table saw. It's you don't have to do everything on the CNC. So I think you're still going to need craftsmen to a certain degree.
definitely.
That's good to hear.
Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that, David? You were.
I definitely agree with that. I think, craftsmen are always going to be an essential part of society. I mean, we're builders, I mean, it's just, it doesn't stop. You think of a colony of ants, like what are they if they're not building their colony, and we're constantly expanding, we're constantly growing. We may change styles and we may change these things, but building is never going to go away. And having people that have that hands-on ability and the aptitude, and organizations like the SMA, they feed that knowledge, that wisdom. Craftsmanship is something that has to be kept alive. It's, I could wax philosophical about a whole host of aspects of it, but I think that craftsmanship is just an essential part of the human condition. It's an art in us, and that's not going to go away anytime soon. And business is always going to require people to do jobs that require physical ability.
Somebody's going to laminate those stringers. There's not going to be any robots laminating stringers. There's not. At least I don't think so. Maybe there will be. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I don't think maybe they'll be able to hold it in place.
Right, right. Well, AI, for example, a lot, it's all the buzz, everybody's talking about AI this and AI that, and all of the jobs that AI can do. It may replace some of the art, unfortunately. I'm not necessarily happy about that, but AI is never going to change the need for a physical person
I really.
to build these things.
In my estimation, is really a good support member of helping you get to the next level. And maybe it's something. One of the questions you had, was what was it? Make how experience. I can't remember, but it helped me. I think it helps you try something. Might help you try. If you don't try, that would be, for a new company to try it. I didn't always make money when we tried new things, but it always was a stepping stone to something else. I can remember probably about 15 years ago, and there was no recession on, actually, and we needed work. I laid off half the shop. And I mean, the whole company, we were half the size, and we needed work. And I was going, and that's when I started the stair dealers. But I quoted this big curved stair, elliptical, 3 stories high, and now it would probably sell for about 700,000. Back then it was like 350,000. But I also knew that could keep my guys busy for a long time, and I really wanted that job. So uh, I got the opportunity to sit in front of the owners and the contractor, and I had to prove myself that I was worthy enough to do the job. And when I tell you I had no business quoting it, I had no business quoting it
Mm.
because it was unsupported elliptical with all these cables running through and glass and stainless steel and all this kind of crap. The location to get into the house, 3 stories. It was like I had no idea. It was one at the time was one of the most sophisticated ones we were gonna do. But I said, yeah, I can do that. So because I wanted the job. So the owner, so I said, keep coming back to the owner, and the owner went with me to the job meeting, and there was a gentleman sitting there, was one of the owners, and he had he had a lot of money. He had a lot of money. He was building a big, big, big house and guest house in Osterville down the Cape. And we started talking, and I'm trying to prove I'm worthy and showing him different pictures and stuff like that. But I had no pictures to that, except I had one job I had done that was pretty good for an owner of a Chinese restaurant. It was very nice. It was pretty elaborate too. And I told him I'd take him to see that if he wanted. So I'm sitting there, and I'm telling you, I'm praying I get this job. I'm waiting for them, and the owner was pulling for me. He wanted the job too because he also knew everything was so critical at the time. So the first thing the owner of this house does, says, "Okay, we'll go look at that that stair, and we'll give you a decision. But I want to tell you, first thing you got to do is sharpen your pencil." Well, I sharpened that baby long before I went into that meeting. I mean, I was as sharp as I was going to get. Plus, I was guessing on so many things I had not done,
Yeah.
which, I was just a wild ass guess. And I just, but I needed that job. So I don't know where I got the gumption to do it, but I stood up, I was on the side of the owner, and I said, "I'm sorry, you know, it doesn't jobs like this don't go down, they go up. When we get involved in this, it's going to be more money, not less money. I came in here with a fair price. I'd like to do the job. I know I can do the job." And they gave me the job.
That was a huge
So,
gamble.
and then it was a big gamble. And I can remember the owner sitting there with his mouth open, saying, "Oh," but again, he fully supported it. He understood where I was coming from, and it was a coin flip for sure. But that job, and when I said stretching and learning, we're still doing stuff that we learned from that job.
Mm.
We learned so much craning a job. We built like a train trestle going into the house with the front doors, lifting it up 3 stories and all this kind of stuff, hoping nobody would die. But we learned so much that we didn't think we could do that. Just like for the shop, it was like, there you go. And everybody did a nice job. And it was for an architect that was very well known on the Cape, and we got a lot of publicity from it. So it's good. It turned out good. Could have went the other way. I got to tell you, I still look back and go, oh man, if I didn't get that job, I don't know what I would have did.
That's
great.
crazy.
I would have been
That's
one
wild.
job.
There's got to be other things, like that seem to improve with your career. I mean, you got the gumption, you got more emboldened dealing with, customers. Is there other aspects of the job that seem to get better for you, as you progressed in the industry?
I just, stair builders are the most inventive group I've ever met. And I don't care who you're talking to in the group, that they've come up with some solution, done something, I'm willing to share too. I've shared so many things, and most of them are willing to share. Maybe there's a couple of things I kept proprietary. Not that I have a whole lot of competition from SMA members. There's a couple nearby, but you got to have some secrets. So,
Right.
I think that sense, you just got to keep trying. You can't give up. You got to stay up. I found very beneficial. Every 2 years for the last 30 years, I went to the Atlanta Tool Show. So the Atlanta Tool Show is coming up this year in August. You've seen all the new stuff coming out. Everybody wants to show their wares, and they're going to that show to show you.
Yeah.
So if they got a new screw that does this thing, a wholesale, they got a new, whatever it is, or a new system for cutting boards, optimizing, whatever it is, it's going to be at that show. So it's nice to have a wish list to go there. And, the owner also used to give me a couple of POs to go. And if he thought, I wouldn't spend like that in a drop, I wouldn't spend $100,000 on a drop, but I could manage smaller stuff that I would just buy and ship and get it going and incorporate it into our business, which again, I was lucky, he trusted me to that respect. And his sons, same way. The sons have made some really good investments here, and I think they like everything so far. But I'm on the way out. I got one foot out the door, the other on a banana peel. It's been good. And that's one of the hardest things for me, to be honest. I don't I don't have any immediate plans to go anywhere. It was funny when I first mentioned in the industry I was cutting back. I got like 4 job offers right away. I said, Dave, come on, work for me. I said, I'm still working. I'm working 3 days a week. Oh, you got 2 more days. I said, so what part of stepping back didn't you understand? I said, I'd like a little time off. I think you earned it. I like a little time off. So I said, I'm flattered by it, but I'm gonna see this through, and this is gonna Cooper Stairworks has Dave Cooper, Peter Humphrey, as Lance Engel, my mentor, is special in my heart. So
Yeah.
I'm here.
So totally off topic. I gotta know, are you a hiker like Dave Cooper?
Dave Cooper got me interested in hiking. My very first hike was a presidential traverse in New Hampshire. He
Ooh.
somehow talked me into that was going to be such a nice adventure. So I almost died on the way. I mean, it was so hot. Somebody not a 40-pound pack for 3 days. It was, I don't know. My rear end was about a quarter of an inch from the ground. I remember walking into my house after going on that hike, and my wife looking at me, she started crying. She goes, "You look so terrible. Oh my God." And I immediately went the next day to the foot doctor to have my 2 toenails removed, big toenails, because they had gotten all screwed up in the hiking boots. Did I have a great time? Yeah. Did I end up with about 18 high points in the United States because of Dave Cooper? Yeah, because he said, "Hey, we're going somewhere. It might be to go see a shop." And he go, "Want to do Smoky's highest point?" And I go, and I end up going. But one that Dave Cooper wasn't at, and I was with 2 men. I was on Saddleback Mountain up in New Hampshire. I think it is Maine, New Hampshire, Maine. And I stepped in a hole and broke my fibula and tibia.
Oh,
So that pretty much ended my hiking career. I got carried off the mountain right into surgery, and they fixed my leg, and my foot was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a horrible experience. It was pouring rain, and I tried to hike after that, but my leg always gave me a hard time. If I do normal things, fine, but putting that through it. But it was fun. But I wasn't. Dave is very unique as far as the hiking goes. I never seen a guy just put one foot in front of the other and get up there. Like he maybe not be the fastest hiker. He's one of the smartest ones, and he puts one foot in front of the other and go. I burn out quick, blah, 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 blah. And then I burn out quick. But he's I think he's got just about. I think he only's missing a couple of them.
Yeah, he's very close, I understand.
What's that?
He's told me he's very close to getting them all.
He's quite a guy. I seen him the other day. He looks great. I don't doubt he gives it another shot.
Good for him. Well, so, back on course. Um, has there been a particular issue that's become or has been more difficult throughout your career, or has gained in difficulty? Anything like that?
One particular thing that stands out.
Yeah.
God. Geez, there was a time when every day was a challenge. I always said I had the best job in the world when things were going right. When they were going wrong, I had the worst job in the world.
Yeah.
One of the worst things I ever had to do was lay off half our employees.
Mm,
That all of those I hired every single one. So I laid off every single one. And right, wrong, or indifferent, during that time, I would not necessarily the most experienced one would stay behind, because I looked at it, if there was someone that was married with a child or two kids, and versus somebody single living at home with mom, I probably laid him off. Uh,
mm,
he still could survive. He still had a roof over his head, and whether it was right or wrong, I just had to live with myself the rest of my life. I let the guy with the family continue working. Maybe it wasn't the best shop choice, but it was the best choice for me to
yeah,
keep my head straight. That is for sure. And I got a lot of them back, and but that I don't wish that on anyone. That was such a terrible time. That was an awful recession.
Yeah.
yeah.
It truly was. It truly
I can
was.
see how that would get more difficult in your career.
Well, when you've hired everybody and then you got to, and that's why I insisted on doing it myself, laying them off. It's just some of them worked for me for 10 years, and they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah,
It's just, it's just terrible. But everyone has those challenges. Everyone. That's a commonality.
yeah, yeah. That's in terms of challenges, is there anything any kind of life experience, either on the job or off the job, that sort of changed
Changed.
you? Yeah, changed you and how you work in the industry and
Well, I'll tell you, there is one. I want to get this right. Oh, sorry, I'm looking down at.
well, you're fine.
So when my wife, 47 years, 14 years ago, came home and she had told me she had cancer,
Mm,
ovarian cancer, that grounds you quicker than anything. Nothing is more important. Nothing
yeah,
is more important to me. We don't have any children. It was me and my wife. Um, it was so horrible. I felt so horrible for her because she's so limited on how you can help. The only thing I can do is support her, bring her to the doctors, and pray, pray, pray. Happy to say she's complete remission. She has been. 14 years later, I still have her. And but that changed the way I looked at everything.
yeah,
The ownership here was just fantastic. Whatever I wanted to do, and to try to work through that was probably the toughest thing I ever did.
yeah,
During the treatments, uh, and anybody who's been through anything even near that, it's really overwhelming. Uh, and I had a lot of support here, luckily, and like I said, the ownership was great. I could leave, come and go whenever I wanted. And thankfully it all turned out good. And I still have her. So
That's
that's great.
fantastic.
That's great. It's great that
that sets you straight. I'll tell you right now.
absolutely challenges, the work-life balance is something that is a big deal, to people.
Oh yeah, right now that's huge.
It is, and these are the reasons why.
Yeah,
That is definitely a profound experience, and I'm so glad that she is doing well and that you do still have her, and that you worked for a company that gave you the flexibility
I couldn't
to
ask for
be
anything
there for
better.
them.
I couldn't
Yeah,
ask for anything better. And I had my own little bout, and they were just the same way. So again, so that work-life balance, you hear so much about it, and you still got to make products, still got to ship it out the door, you still got
Right.
all these commitments to make, you still got bills to pay, you still have all that stuff. But if you can help out in any way like that and make somebody's, I remember just a simple hour, I had a CAD person working for me, and our hours were like 8 to 5 or whatever the heck it was at the time. And he asked me, can I come in at 7? And I'm like, ugh, I like the team. I was being so stubborn. I wanted the team together. And I'm like, oh, what, geez, why? He says, well, I put my 2 kids on the bus. I said, okay. He never forgot that. He never forgot that. He never forgot to be able to put his kids on the bus later on. Most families now, they're both working, and, his
Right.
wife had to go to work, and there was no flexibility there. So it was, so those little things like that, the work-life balance, I think, the littlest things mean so much to people that, you have no clue.
Definitely.
Just saying hello. Just saying hello when you're walking
Yeah.
in the shop. There was a time when I used to know everyone's name in the plant, but now with the way the hiring has been going on, so down in the shop, I certainly do, and I make a point of going by and saying hello and how you doing, and that means so much to the whole thing. It really does. To be
Yeah.
acknowledged, I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
That would be
100%.
one of my tips. Say hello. No, I'm serious. And
It's
you
a
know
good
how
one.
I really started doing that on a regular basis? It was the manager or supervisor in the custom door shop. Well, my background, stairs, 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 and I was like, "Ugh, ugh." But we were also doing doors. And I walked down the shop right by the door shop and go over to see the stair supervisor. And one day he said to me, great, you're gonna stop and talk to me now? You just go right over to the stairs and leave me here, and I'm building these doors for you. And his name is Keith, and I said, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So I tried to, the best of my ability, acknowledge as many people as I can when I go into the shop. I
Yeah.
don't care now. I'm not giving them races.
Oh, good.
Very good. Very good. Well, David, do you have anything else that we need to query this young man
Oh,
about?
God.
I think we've covered a very good, it's refreshing to hear so much of the human element, Dave, of your involvement in the industry, the relationships that you had with, the people who brought you into the company, the relationships you've established with people, throughout your career, people you've hired, people you've had to let go. And the influence of your personal life and how that's affected you in your industry, and those are great stories. That's what this is all about. This is all information that I think is valuable for the next
I don't know how
generation.
I don't know how valuable it is. I really was hesitant about even doing this. I'm sure Tara tell you.
Oh, well, we
I
appreciate, the people that we've met with so far within the industry, I think have all been legends within the industry, truly.
that's the
Um,
part that
Yeah.
I really have a problem with.
Everybody does. Everybody.
I know, everybody
Because I'll
does.
tell you why. I wouldn't be anything without everybody that worked for me.
Right.
They were the heroes. As crazy as that sounds, is they're the ones who worked so hard for me over the years and developed stuff, and I'm so very proud of all of them. But I told Tara I'd do it, so I did it.
Yeah.
We
Well,
appreciate it.
I'll say that humility and craftsmanship seem to go hand in hand.
For
Well,
sure. For sure.
And
whatever.
we hear the same thing from everybody we interview. But you guys were chosen for that reason. And you are legends, whether you want to accept.
Oh, I don't. I'm sorry, I'm not going with that. I'm just a
Well,
working
but
stiff.
just
I
to
came from a very modest background, guys, and just a working stiff, and I just did the best I could.
that's
Appreciate
beautiful, beautiful. Anyway, well, I guess we'll call this a wrap then. And
That's
Dave, we
my story.
really
I'm sticking
appreciate
to
it.
it.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to join us for the next episode of Legends, Voices Behind the Craft.